Have you been thinking about buying a second home? Well, in today's video, this is going to be the very first in a series where I walk you through the pros, cons, how-tos, and everything you should know before you make that decision. If you don't already know me, I am Nick Deckard. I am a local real estate agent here in beautiful Ocean City, New Jersey, where the majority of the properties here and the owners here are second home owners. When I first speak with potential buyers here in the Ocean City area, I walk them through three main categories that we need to think through so that they can make a confident, correct, and long-term decision. Now, before we walk through those one by one, if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe down below. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more content, not just around Ocean City anymore, which has been the history of my channel to date, but I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about second home ownership as a whole. I feel that there's a huge knowledge gap and a huge education gap out there, and not really a resource available that's going to be able to talk broadly about the pros and cons of second home ownership. So I'm going to step into that space, and if you want to be the first to know all of that information as I deliver it, make sure you hit the bell next to that subscribe button as well, and let's get going. Now, there are two main approaches that I have seen when it comes to second home ownership. Category number one is the majority of people. They're very financially conscious. That ends up being one of the biggest drivers of the decision that they ultimately make. Now, the second category is the minority of second home buyers, but they're the ones who are able to make a decision quickly. And that is those for which money is not a factor. This is an emotionally driven decision. And what I mean by that is not a rash decision, but this is a category of people who focus on the upside, the personal connection that they have to this place. This is going to be a home away from home for their family, for their friends, to make memories, because that's what life is ultimately about. It's not about hoarding dollars and cents. So we're going to talk through the financial piece first, because like I mentioned, that is a huge factor for most people. I'm going to keep it fairly short and sweet today because there are a lot more topics that I can dive deeply into that will really help you in your decision making. But when it comes to financials, there are a couple main areas that you need to be thinking about. Number one is, would you be renting the property? That's a big first point, because if you are not going to be renting the property, you are going to be incurring every expense along the way. That ranges from utilities to maintenance cost. Any expense you would normally have with any property that you own, you would have that in the second home area as well. So if financials are a concern, you want to first decide, are you going to look to offset some of the ownership cost of that second home through rental income? When it comes to that, you definitely want to talk to your certified public accountant, your CPA, because there's a lot that can go into that to offset the costs, from depreciation to loss recapture. Those are things I'm not licensed to talk about. If you don't already have an established relationship with a CPA, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help you find one in your area who knows a lot about the second home world and how to take advantage of all the tax benefits of owning a second home. The key here is, can you afford a second home? You want to think through everything from the down payment to the closing costs to the annual maintenance and utilities like we talked about, and so much more. So that is the big number one, is think through the financial decision and how that's going to impact you, and is it something that you can realistically afford? Category number two is logistics. Now, what do I mean by that? We're not calling UPS for anything, but maintenance is a huge piece of any home that you own, unless you own in a condo complex where most of it is taken care of for you. But you want to make sure you're thinking through this. If you're considering buying a home within an hour, 2 or 3 drive from your primary residence, maybe getting down there a couple times a year is not the end of the world, to make sure everything's okay, to take care of what needs taken care of. But if you're looking to buy across the country, a plane ride away, you need to make sure you have boots on the ground there. Now, me personally, I am here for my clients who buy in Ocean City, whether they're a couple hours away or days away, and I make sure that I can help them in that regard. But for you, it may be better to have a property manager, right? Somebody who can be on call for you to handle your property and help you maintain it. Now, that is an additional expense, factors into that first bullet we talked about, the financial piece of things. But again, you want to be thinking about all of this before you jump in and make a truly rash emotional decision. The logistics are important, and you need to have a plan. Last but not least, and this is the most important one in my eyes, and this is the main driver for why I've seen people make the decisions that they do, assuming the financials are okay, we can get comfortable with those, and the logistics tend to not be a huge deal for most people, it's the lifestyle piece. Now, most people end up buying a second home because they want to live a certain lifestyle. That's not just for them, The buyers, that can be for friends and family. That's to have a place of congregation in a super fun location where they can go once, twice, 10 times a year. I'm going to repeat that. For most people who ultimately buy a second home versus the ones who just think and talk about it, it's those who are committed to living a certain lifestyle. For you, maybe that's having a place in the mountains or at the lake or at the beach or in the middle of nowhere if you just want a place of solitude. But you have an emotion in you somewhere that's driving you down this path. That's where this always starts. So you need to listen to that, because ultimately, if you make a decision with having pushed that initial thing that's driving you on the back burner, you are likely to regret your purchase. Now, real estate in some of these second home markets, highly liquid, you can sell in no problem. Some it might take a little bit longer. So again, I can't stress the importance of having a conversation with a local real estate agent to go through these topics to help you understand the market there, to help you understand what the financials may look like on a particular property. I'm not always going to be asking or recommending that you do things on these videos, but in this instance, if you're thinking about buying a second home anywhere in the country or the world, I have a huge network of expert agents at my disposal that I'd be happy to connect you with. There's a difference between calling the listing agent who may have listed a property that you saw on Zillow and actually contacting a buyer's expert who can walk you through all of these. And quite honestly, if it's the listing agent, their biggest concern is selling the property, not necessarily making sure you get what you're looking for. So that is it for today's video. I hope you found this basic intro helpful. As I mentioned, I'm going to be putting out a lot more second home specific information in the future, so make sure if you haven't, once again, hit subscribe down below. And if you have any questions, you can contact me directly. My information is down in the description, or drop the question in the comments. I promise you, if you have a question, you are not the only one thinking about it. So make sure you drop it down there for everybody to get those wheels moving and to help make these decisions more confidently going forward. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you on the next video.